Street Fighter II for the PC is a good idea, but it seems like it got pushed out the production door too early in order to capitalize on the success of the Super Nintendo version. The PC version could have been a contender. Unfortunately, it's all gloss and no gameplay. Upon loading Street Fighter II, this is the first scene the gamer is presented with. Unimpressive graphics with choppy animation is your first impression of the game. The following graphics are much better than this, but this screen is a good representation of the poor quality of the rest of the game. Here is a fine example of the many rough edges to be found within this program. The copy protection scheme is a typical manual lookup question. Do you count section headers as lines or not? Don't ask the manual, it won't tell you. The player selection and map screen is nicely drawn, as is the rest of the game, and is nearly as good looking as the Super Nintendo screen. Your fighter's transport plane moves slowly between destination points, a good precursor of the sluggish gameplay to come. It looks nice, though. Get used to this screen because you're going to be seeing a lot of it. Street Fighter II puts your hard drive through its paces as it attempts to load graphics data for the background scenery. You don't quite have enough time to stand up and make a sandwich during this process, but it's close. Once the hard drive stops spinning, the results are visually impressive. The graphics, while not as good as on the Super Nintendo, and why not, are easily the strongest point of this game. Any type of aerial move, like Chun-Li's jump kick shown here, is executed in extreme slow motion. It looks nice, though. Fighting on the PC is like fighting in molasses. Each fighter's moves are executed so slowly there's plenty of time to block, dodge, and counterattack. Needless to say, this is not a turbo version of Street Fighter II. Staying close to the ground is the only way to make this game even playable, as air attacks are mind-bogglingly slow. Ground-based slugfests aren't much better, as your hands can easily play this game much faster than your on-screen persona can react. Using your feet to operate the joystick might make the game a little more challenging, but I'm not promising anything. Controlling your fighter is more often than not an exercise in futility. The command for issuing a roundhouse punch to your opponent is up on the joystick and the punch button simultaneously. From Dalsim's behavior here, you can see where the combination usually gets you. Did I mention this game has nice looks? If you haven't tired of the game before you get to the bosses, you'll find that they are faithfully reproduced from the Super Nintendo. All their moves are intact, as well as their colorful background scenery. But don't expect a dramatic increase in difficulty, though. These guys move just as slowly as everyone else. Considering how difficult this game is to control, you'll be lucky if you ever get some of the special moves to work. Dalsim's Yoga Fire seemed to be about the easiest to execute, along with Blanca's electrical and rolling attacks. If you don't have a joystick and must resort to a keyboard, you have my sympathies. Speed was the strong point of many of the bosses on the Super Nintendo. Don't look for that here. Without their dizzying quickness, the bosses provide little more challenge than the regular characters. As you can see, Vega doesn't look too happy about the situation, but boy does he look nice. Nothing except gameplay has been left out in the conversion from Super Nintendo to PC. This bonus round is actually a new feature. Be careful of the flame squirts from the barrels as you try your best to mash them. Fire can't kill you in a bonus round, but it will leave you stunned for a few seconds, wasting precious time. Dalsim's sliding ground kick is so powerful that the game can be played successfully from start to finish without using another move. Nobody can seem to block it, nor can they hit Dalsim when he's in that position. Would you call that a bug, a glitch, or an undocumented feature? As the next to the last boss, Sagat should provide a tough stumbling block to overcome. He should, but he doesn't. The blistering combination of Tiger Fire and Tiger Uppercut that was so damaging on the Super Nintendo is rarely even attempted here. And when Sagat does pull it off, it is easily avoided due to the lack of speed and Dalsim's invulnerable move. This shot is a good example of how choppy the animation can be at times. Although Dalsim is in two places at once here, he's not teleporting or anything fancy like that. The aerial moves are actually animated quite smoothly, but the ground attacks are choppy even on a 486 DX. Why good animation can be had on a Nintendo and not on a PC is anybody's guess. Major Bison, the big bad boss at the end of the game, was an absolute horror on the Super Nintendo, combining dizzying speed with an almost constant barrage of flying special effects, like the one shown here. In this version, however, he is nothing but an overstuffed cream puff in a red jumpsuit. He has no more speed than Blanca and only uses his special attacks occasionally. Bison is a disappointing finale to an already disappointing game.